If you can't beat them, then you pop them. You can't man them, then you mop them. You can't stand them, then you drop them. You pop them, cause we pop them like overred and vodka. C3, okay, a millionaire. I'm a young money millionaire.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Stack. We are here with our favorite edition, the Friday Stack. We got a big show ahead of us today. Silver hitting $100. What is going on over there? While Bitcoin stays around 90K. When will it catch up? We will be discussing Bitcoin corporate adoption. What is going on here with the treasury companies? How is Bitcoin being perceived within corporate community? And we've got a special guest, Allard, the author of a brand new report for Bitcoin for Corporations, telling you what is going on when it comes to corporate Bitcoin adoption. Everybody, how are we doing today? Jody, what is up?
Good morning. It's good. We're getting a dusting of snow. We're sliding around a little bit, driving to daycare. I'm excited. I connect with Allard. He puts a lot of good stuff on Twitter. So if you look at search Bitcoin asset research, I followed him. Has a good, clear voice. Excited to dive into the report and talk to some Bitcoiners about, I think, understanding how to go into 2026 with a better mindset of treasury companies. How are corporations actually, adopting Bitcoin? Don't get caught up in the hype. We want for our listeners to make good financial decisions and grow their stack.
Absolutely. Allard, how are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well, guys. Happy to be here.
Cheers. All right. Well, let's dive right into it. Why don't we share with the audience a little bit about your background? How'd you get into Bitcoin, and how are you now a part of Bitcoin for Corporations?
Okay. The short version of the story is I got into Bitcoin really through the crypto space. At first, I was pretty interested in the idea of smart contracts, DeFi, stuff like that. And then as I was working in that sector and learning more about it, I was thinking through what is the real signal in this space. And of course, that led me to Bitcoin. So I became a Bitcoin maxi in early 2023 after reading Alan Farrington's Only the Strong Survive. It's a really good, about 30-page PDF. After a second reading of that, I was really sold on the idea of Bitcoin maximalism. So at that point, I continued working within crypto, and then in mid 2025, the company I was working for got acquired by Kraken, and that's when I decided hey, let me just start working in Bitcoin full time. So now I started at Bitcoin for Corporations about 3 months ago, and it's been really nice. I'm the research and insights analyst over there.
Very cool. And so do any of your friends from the crypto world understand your transition to becoming a Bitcoin maxi?
This is a funny question. So I'd say a lot of the people in crypto are pretty much closet Bitcoin maxis. And I would use the term Bitcoin maxi here, the soft interpretation of this term, not necessarily that they think everything that's not Bitcoin is absolutely horrible. That's not what I mean by Bitcoin maxi. But I guess what I would be referring to is they think of the stuff in this space. It's mostly Bitcoin that is the thing that is secure and the short thing, so to speak, right? I think most people in crypto kind of understand that, even if they don't want to articulate it. When I have conversations one-on-one and we really go deep into it, ultimately it's I'm kind of, Bitcoin believer anyway. So I haven't really met too much people in crypto that I would say they are really willing to try to argue the fact that blockchain is the innovation and not Bitcoin, right? That's the thing that I don't really hear that much people who are informed making that argument.
Yeah, understood.
I have a cousin that's a banker, and I hope he's listening right now. But he said that to me early on, and I appreciate it. But then he's been curious and following up, on why resistance assets, and now we're seeing debasement trade. So there's this developing sense of why you need to protect your wealth in something that's not tied to the state. We've always had this separation of religion and state, or separation of church and state in the United States. we should be thinking of that with money too, because money is time, money is your effort, money is your life's work, and like how you get, evaluated for that. I think for you, getting a research job is tough these days with AI, because you have so much, as they say, plebe slop, AI slop. I think slop was like one of the words of the year for Merriam-Webster last year. How do you
I know that.
I read your stuff, and I do get the sense that this was handwritten, hand typed, in your tweets, in this content you put out. Is it just a dedication, and is it conviction in Bitcoin and what you're talking about, where you're saying, I don't want to like run this through an LLM. I'm willing to put in the focus, the hours to type this out manually, human style, classic style.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely use LLMs to help us with research and stuff like that, right? Like, I think they're absolutely, it's absolutely a great tool. Like Bitcoin and like all tools, if you know how to use it correctly, then you can go very far with it. In terms of this report, right? Like generally when I write stuff, I think through, first off, it's gathering that data. Gathering the data is tough, for something like this. We're talking about very wide, like cross-sectional panel style data. It would be like the econometrics term for this kind of stuff. So, time is involved in it. When I say time, I mean time as a variable within the data set is involved in it. And, there's just a lot of different places where you have to source this from. And of course, you use LLMs to help you write the code to source that kind of data, to collect it, to gather it, to do the analysis on it. Within the context of, okay, now we have the data, let's put together a cohesive narrative that tells a story of what this data is saying. That stuff, you have to look at the data, come up with an idea of what's going on. And there's points of where you're doing back and forths with an LLM saying like, is what we're saying reasonable? How can we sharpen this and make this better? So yeah, it's a very iterative process. And I think if you know how to use the tool right, definitely I think it's sharpened my ability to synthesize more information faster.
Yes, it's when you give up all of your cognitive abilities to the machine is when we find the problems happening. Well, cool. I think let's hop right into this report. It's a beautiful piece, and let's talk about it. What went into this? How many people worked on it, and how long did it take you to publish?
Yeah, so I wrote the whole thing, like the text, and then shout out to the research team shout out to the design team at BTC Inc. to like actually go from my report, which was in a Google Doc, into this like really beautifully made PDF. And of course, none of this would be possible without our BFC sponsors, which is on the next page. But yeah, BFC is a great organization. We bring together Bitcoin companies and just companies that are interested in adopting like a Bitcoin treasury strategy. And we equip them with a lot of the resources to help them be successful in that endeavor. So yeah, like the report is like, we do want to have regular checkpoints on what's going on in the Bitcoin ecosystem and the state of Bitcoin corporate adoption. Like with Bitcoin for corporations, that's the main thing we're focused on. Certainly there's many other things going on in Bitcoin outside of just corporate adoption, but that's what we're focused on with this one.
Cool. So let's hit on some of the top executive points here. Yeah, Bitcoin underperformed in 2025, yet corporate holdings still grew. It was quite the year for Bitcoin treasury companies. There was certainly a mania, a euphoria back in May, June, but that cooled by the end of the year. What is your sense of the current state and vibe of Bitcoin treasuries 1 year later?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's definitely a feat and like impressive fact that Bitcoin was probably the worst performing major asset in 2025. And if you scroll down to one of the earlier pages, like this was literally in the introduction, that is a chart, that's a table comparing the different returns. And you can see like amongst the major assets, Bitcoin is the only one that was down with a negative Sharpe ratio. And like you have the debasement trades, like the two metals at the top there are just crushing it, right? Like a 3 Sharpe is something that most funds would kill for. But like it was a bad year, but we still saw an extreme amount of Bitcoin adoption based on effectively all metrics that you could measure this thing by, right? Like based on how many different companies hold it at the end of 2025 versus at the beginning, how many different jurisdictions had companies that held it at the end of 2025 versus at the beginning, like how much the holdings have grown. It's been grown by a huge amount, just these public company holdings. And private company, there's much less visibility into that, but we can infer that the private company growth is probably just as aggressive as this public company growth. So yeah, like within these metrics, it all looks really great. The plethora of different capital raise strategies that have come around to it, as well as some of this was mentioned towards the end, but like some of the strategies around employing the treasury in a way that allows you to generate more income on that Bitcoin treasury that you've gathered through either retained earnings or capital raises. So like upon all metrics that we can measure by, right? Like you clearly have corporate adoption growing. And this is something that is definitely favorable to see if you are a Bitcoin believer. And yeah, like that's what the report reveals. We have some other, like taking that data, you can do some other kinds of interesting calculations with this. So one of the sections was about like corporate behavior. And so what we did was we looked at the monthly accumulation of Bitcoin by different companies, like cross-sectionally. And one interesting thing that we found was, if you break up corporate behavior based on 2 decisions. So the first decision is, do I want to change my Bitcoin holdings? And the second decision is conditional on you decide to change the Bitcoin holdings. Am I going to buy or am I going to sell, right? Am I going to increase the holdings or am I going to decrease the holdings? So if you can actually model that out as like using like just classical econometric techniques. And what I found was like we have found a statistically significant relationship where if in the prior month, right, downside volatility was higher than normal, it actually causes, well, I shouldn't say it's correlated with a behavioral response of these companies to decide to like decrease their holdings, or like at least decide to lean towards decreasing their holdings, conditional on they've wanted to change their holdings in the first place, right? So with this data set, like we're also able to run some of these studies. And I think like that's an initial groundwork for further research along these areas of like how corporations think through this on an aggregate, right? So yeah, those are some of the results. Obviously, we talk about digital credit. I think like that's like one of the bigger themes that came up in 2025 and I expect
before we get to the press, which I do want to get into,
yeah.
You talked about the decision making on the buy or sell Bitcoin for the corporations themselves. I know it's been a contentious piece of, should a Bitcoin treasury company sell their Bitcoin? So much of the market is driven on sentiment, on Saylor, having conviction, never selling your Bitcoin. What was your take going into it? And then did that change over 2025 as you saw the market dip and then, some companies start to sell, not Michael Saylor, not strategy, but we saw companies start to sell and people were saying, is this, maybe it's a good financial decision, but is it, you're kind of breaking the seal of the conviction of we're never selling our Bitcoin. It's the best pristine collateral.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So I would say this, like my opinion on this matter in terms of like what I think the playbook and play-by-play procedure should be has not really changed much over the course of 2025, right? Going into it, I look at a company and I say, well, what is the purpose of a company? Well, a company exists for one purpose and one purpose only, and it is to enrich its shareholders. Okay. There is no other purpose which can conceivably make sense for a company that still allows an economy to function. Right. So that's the only purpose of a company, is to enrich its shareholders. Now, if you go off of that purpose, right? And then everything else must flow from that initial starting point. That's the end goal. So, like, what can we do to achieve that goal? To the extent that Bitcoin allows you to hold an asset that increases the business's equity value, that is a way of enriching the shareholders, right? And to the extent Bitcoin's price appreciation exceeds the value accumulation that would be earned by you deploying those funds to other business operations. To that extent, it makes sense to buy Bitcoin instead of deploying capital in other ways. What I just stated there was a longer explanation for the term Bitcoin is the hurdle rate, right? So when we say Bitcoin is the hurdle rate, that is what we mean. That, you know, any business decision I do needs to be measured against Bitcoin's performance. And if it is better than Bitcoin's performance, if it conceivably can be better than Bitcoin's performance, then we do that and we don't buy Bitcoin. Or we sell the Bitcoin to pursue that strategy, right? So that's ultimately the North Star. So if you're following that North Star, most of the time, a company should probably just buy Bitcoin, because it's hard to do something that, you know, beats Bitcoin. Now, there are times, of course, where, you know, after you've bought the Bitcoin, conditions can change. And then at that point, if you're still following the North Star, it does make sense to sell the Bitcoin. So that would be my answer to that, right? Like, ultimately, it all depends on what's going to best enrich the shareholders. So from a conviction perspective, like, I don't think conviction matters to the extent of sticking with a strategy and seeing it through, right? But ultimately, conviction isn't the thing that matters. The thing that matters is shareholder value creation, right? So we have to always think along those lines first. In terms of corporate adoption, most corporations that, you know, bought Bitcoin in 2025, frankly, they are down, right? Because Bitcoin didn't have a good 2025. This was in that table in the introduction, right? So right now, thus far, it has not lived up to that promise of being that thing that you should buy, and over the long term, it'll work out. But that's only over the course of 2025, right? Like, we have to really allow this experiment, this scenario, to play out a few more years. Like, people say, give it 4 years at least, right? Like, this is a very long duration asset. And I think that's what's really important there. But what's interesting and what's a big signal is that, you know, companies are still buying it. And even up till the end of 2025, when the performance, you know, has been flat along the year, or slightly down along the year, or just extremely volatile throughout the year, you still have companies still accumulating, and not just companies like Strategy.
Yeah. Very cool. I'd like to highlight this part in your report here. This is the map of global Bitcoin corporate adoption at the end of 2024. And here we have it at the end of 2025. So this really became a global story in the last year. Of course, America is leading the charge here with nearly 1 million Bitcoin in corporate coffers, but we also see some big ones here. East Asia has 69,000 Bitcoin in their corporate treasuries, and all over Europe, Latin America. What really surprised you about the global aspect of this over the last 12 months?
I think, like, one thing is, like, I think, like, India, probably I would have expected there to be more. It's a very big country, but I don't think I might be wrong on this, but, like, I don't think their capital markets are as developed as, say, a place like Europe, US, or Japan. So maybe that's one reason over there. Yeah, but I think that was the most surprising thing for me. But otherwise, it's like, I more or less expected that there would be more companies and more jurisdictions that got on this.
And in terms of jurisdictions, we know that like Japan is perfectly suited for Bitcoin treasury companies. Metaplanet really proved that there. England, London also seems like a great place for treasury companies. What countries do you think really stand out as places that will succeed with this strategy?
Yeah, I mean, US I think is easily the number one over here. The US capital markets are the deepest in the entire world. That's probably not going to change anytime soon. Japan has the structurally lower interest rates due to their history of financial repression. Europe, I'm not too like. So first off, you shouldn't say Europe has a blanket statement because there's obviously a bunch of different countries in Europe. But like Europe has some level of financial repression amongst many of its component countries. But I also understand like the rules within Europe do kind of make it a little bit more difficult to launch something like this and make it succeed to the extent of, if you were doing it in the US, for example. So that's kind of the dynamic that I'm seeing.
That's a good segue into STRE, right? So the European flavor of STRC, which has been the hot topic on X the last like 2 to 3 weeks, or it launched obviously like before last year, but now people are really starting to track volumes and are people and corporations adopting the belief in this like, oh, this preferred equity is like the best money market fund that we've ever seen. What are your thoughts on Stretch? And then do you think STRE, which is the European version, will continue to take over the globe in different variations?
Yeah. So I just want to make a quick like statement over there. Like STRE, I wouldn't say that's like the European version of Stretch. It's more like the European version of Strife, right? Like Strife is the fixed dividend one that pays like $10 per year, and with Stream STRE, that's supposed to pay like basically 10 euros per year on a 100 euro notional value, right? So that is, I would say like Stream is more of a euro version of Strife. Stretch, however, to answer your first question, Jody, like when it first came out, I think I was probably the first person to like really write out a deep dive of it on Twitter. And what I had written was Stretch is like the most interesting security offered by any entity ever, right? That was like my headline statement. And I made a few big claims over there that I think like people have started, as I look through the discourse through social media and stuff, I think over the last few months, people have started to come around to that original thing that I pointed out. So the first thing that I pointed out was Stretch is really strategy getting into this role where it is almost like a central bank for Bitcoin. And this is something that later on, like Saylor started saying this too. He said this in a few different presentations where he talked about the prefs, and then when he came to the STRC slide, he'd be like, this is kind of like we're creating a currency and then we're setting an interest rate on the currency so that the currency maintains a fixed exchange rate, right? So from that perspective, strategy is kind of like a central bank in that it is like issuing this asset, and then it's creating a peg for that asset and is setting monetary policy on that asset so that the peg may be maintained, right? Mm-hmm. So to translate that over to what STRC's mechanics actually are, the peg is the $100 stated amount. That's basically like, strategy will do what it can to make sure that it trades at that price. The monetary policy, quote unquote, is the monthly dividend reset, right? So every month they're going to take a look at a VWAP of the past 5 days at the end of the month. And they're going to be like, all right, based on what this VWAP is and where that number sits within our range, we're going to adjust the dividend rate up or down or keep it flat, right? So one example is like when it was trading around 95, this was one of the first few months it was out. They did like a very big, I think it was like a 100 basis point increase in the rate, right? So that right there is one example of monetary policy, right? It's not like we can't call it monetary policy technically because it's a preferred security, and these are dividends on distributions on a preferred security. So it's not monetary policy, like the asset isn't a money, but economically speaking, that is economically congruent to saying that, hey, it is kind of a money. And these dividend policies, this variable dividend rate is kind of like monetary policy. And the issuer that is setting that dividend rate, that is kind of behaving like a central bank. So when you think about it in that light, yeah, it does seem like STRC, with the advent of Stretch, it really is like strategy starting to engage in this central bank-like role within Bitcoin. I put out another
I like this. I like where you're going. This is, I think, as we talked about, network states, biology, as we talk about like decentralization of money, this is exactly where, strategy can't tax me, right? They're not taking out of my savings account to inflate the dollar, increase the supply. If they become a central bank-like entity, it's, driven by market forces, and they're beholden to market forces versus having the power to make bad decisions that they have no consequence for because they can just continue taxing. So just want to stop and say, like, I think like packaging this up to help people understand what strategy is doing is really what's needed to go into this year and get better adoption of these products.
Yeah. I think like a lot of people might be uncomfortable with the notion that this is like a central bank, and like to that, I really just like I understand where they're coming from, but for me, when I look at this, it's almost like none of this could have really been prevented, right? Like someone was going to do this no matter what. People are allowed to buy Bitcoin, so at the end of the day, like there was going to arise an entity that accumulated Bitcoin and made that their core focus. Strategy happened to be that entity, so I think that's just how this turn of events came out. And yeah, like it is what it is. I think that with the advent of digital credit, there are a lot of things that I mean, this is a very deep topic. We'll probably talk for an hour about like this topic alone, but just the idea that like you can put digital credit as like effectively the asset side of the fractional reserve banking balance sheet, and allow digital credit to be the asset that backs fiat M2, right? So what I mean by that is you look at a bank, all the customers' bank deposits and all the money that flows through the economy, that is fiat M2 money. So what that means is it's backed through like physical credit instruments, like mortgages, like car loans, like student loans. These credit instruments are the assets that back fiat M2. And if you replaced part of that with digital credit, which itself is just backed by Bitcoin and issued by a treasury company like Strategy, you've allowed a sleeve of that fiat M2 backing to be much more anti-fragile and robust. Because Bitcoin, the collateral being immaterial, being like dematerialized and digital, it doesn't have the same risk factors that all the other forms of collateral are exposed to. So if you look at physical credit, when I say a car loan, that collateral is the car. When I say a mortgage, that collateral is a building, it's a house, right? And someone has to make those payments. And those people, like, it's a very pro-cyclical what the state of that collateral is. Because if the economy goes bad, like a lot of mortgage payments stop, right? And then now the fiat central bank has to step in with their bailouts and all of that. So,
and another point of the fragility is on, you're talking about mortgage-backed securities, what we saw in 2008, and how much of the system was built off on top of that. And we've been hearing rumors, and rumors are pushing, how much it's going to turn into policy remains to be seen, but blocking BlackRock, blocking Blackstone, or international investors from being able to invest in U.S. single-family homes. A lot of the market is propped up by these like massive, swaths of like corporate owned single family homes. It pushes up home prices. That builds, the credit supply, where then the banks, have the mortgages that are getting in, and they're able to go issue out more in the fractional reserve system, more credit, but they're not held to anything because it's really fragile. And if you remove that Jenga block of foreign investors buying U.S. homes, what happens? I don't think it's good. I mean, I do think it's actually good to lower home prices or not lower them in a non-market way, but I do think it's good to have home affordability. I just know something's going to happen if that ever comes through, which it could, I think, with a reflexive like policy in 2028.
Yeah. And to that point, Jody, like going a little further than that, Bitcoin is like the only capital asset where you can funnel all the Cantillon spigot proceeds into it and it doesn't hurt anybody, right? You funnel Cantillon spigot money into housing, it hurts a lot of people because now a lot of people are priced out of having a home.
Yeah. Your main asset that like our parents got all their equity and all their net worth that they could borrow against now, like buy, borrow, die against your home. Like the future generations, our generation, Gen Z, there's a lot of frustration. I think that's why they're going to vote very differently, is because they see boomers not, just not getting the same opportunities to build wealth and then have a good life because they're, forever renters.
Yeah. And the most heartbreaking thing about that is that they don't even realize what the actual culprit and source of the problem is. Right? Like most people would like blame the rich or blame the corporations or blame like whoever, right? And it's just like none of those entities are really the source of the problem. And you can force all of those entities to do something differently, but if you don't change the fact that the currency has the potential to be debased continually, you don't change that fact, then none of those other changes really matter. So, I mean, when I look at it, and like this is part of the reason I'm a Bitcoin maxi, like the only way to really fix this is to have sound money. The only sound money within this century, now that we have the internet and telecommunications, is Bitcoin. So that's, I think that's like the thesis over there. But that's a very long-term thesis. I think that's something that we can easily gloss over in the short term and in the year to year.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a 35-page report that you've put together here. It's beautifully done, a great read, and obviously your knowledge on Bitcoin treasury companies and the proliferation of digital credit is really top-notch here. So I really appreciate you giving us that download right here, Allard. But at this juncture, I would like to give a shout out to our sponsors over here, Rhino. Rhino is about getting access to different financial services for Bitcoin all in one place. Before, they were scattered across multiple different platforms. Now, no more problems because Rhino is changing this. Rhino is the next generation Bitcoin banking app designed to handle all of your needs in one app. What can you do? Of course, you can buy Bitcoin at some of the lowest fees anywhere. More sats per dollar, make payments over the Lightning Network instantly with zero fees, send cash globally over Bitcoin rails, send dollars, they receive it in their native currency, very fast, very low fees. And of course, you can DCA, set up your savings as you wish. What time, what percentage of either Bitcoin going up or going down, it's all up to you. You are in control. And coming soon, Rhino will let you pay your bills, direct deposit, borrow against your Bitcoin, and even save for retirement all in one place. And of course, security is very important with Rhino. There's biometric verification, 24/7 fraud protection, and of course, the confidence of knowing your Bitcoin will never, ever be rehypothecated. And if you are a multi-sig user with Casa, you can use Rhino as one of your keys for your multi-sig. So today, go to rhinobitcoin.com, download the app, And if you use the promo code Bitcoin News, you'll get $10 of free Bitcoin in your Rhino wallet ASAP. Rhino is built to keep you in control of your Bitcoin every minute of the day. Go check out Rhino. Big shout out to our sponsors of this show. Thank you for that. All right. Now we transition over to the game show portion of today's show, Mount Rushmore. We are going to be picking the best operators in Bitcoin. If you had the choice of anybody in Bitcoin to start a business with, who would you go with? Why? And what skills would they bring to the table? So, Jody, you ready for this? I think you are muted, brother. Let's get this going.
Brother. Let's go. Okay, so for those not familiar with the rules, Mount Rushmore, 4 presidents. So Allard, myself, and Rob will be picking in a snake draft format. Our 4 choices, it's going to be based on Bitcoiners to start a business with. Who are the best operators? Who would you want to partner with as in the trenches, as the VCs say, which is always a funny thing to poke fun at, VCs that think they're, battlefield warriors. So, Allard, we're going to kick off with you. You get the first pick, and then it'll go Jody, Rob, then snake draft, Rob, Jody. Back to you, Allard.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, just for context, I hadn't really thought much about this game, and I really like the idea of it. I guess first pick, top of my head, probably Eric Yakes. From
Wow.
I like his stuff. I think his research reports are really nice, and I think he has a very good pulse on the ecosystem, and just overall quite knowledgeable about what's there and what's possible.
I like that. I like the unique pick. I saw him at Bitcoin is for Everyone conference in Portland, August of last year, and he was a speaker. So first interaction with that. Now follow him on X. He just released a report as well, so we can pull that up later. But good pick.
Yeah, and I also think he's a great pick because he's a man of the people. He is not only a brilliant mind, but he is an absolute bro. And so if you need to drink a beer with a Bitcoiner, he's definitely on that list too. He's got a great business sense. He can explain things very clearly, and he knows the people. Great choice. Impressive. All right, Jody.
Yeah.
Up to you.
All right, so very stoked actually today because the Friday stack, we have a new system set up. And the names are updating. So we're not typing it in Mac Preview like we were before, like noobs, like MS Paint, just drawing things on there, which we are men of the people, and that's our technical savvy. But we have something a little faster, and let's see if this pops up. There we go. Adam back, first pick for my team. This isn't like too much of a sleeper pick. He's super active. I want to lay down the key points of why he's going to be the cornerstone. First of all, funding. He is willing to not only sit back as an OG on a beach, but he's running Blockstream. He's also running, Beaster, BSTR. So he's getting in the treasury company game. He's also working on, Lightning Network and is it Liquid that he's working on, or what's
Liquid?
Yeah. And so he's working on making the payment use case better, but he's also sees the value in the corporate, treasury accumulation as pristine collateral. What I love is, yes, he could, have the financial backing. He's putting, I think billions into different treasury companies, like BSTR, as well as what's the one in Europe with Alexander Lizette? Skipping my name right now.
Capital B. So investor in Capital B. So he's putting his money where his mouth is. But I love that he also has an open mind. As someone that's an OG, a lot of them we see with core versus nuts get in this Luke Dash Jr. versus this other person on Twitter, and it's this long thread. Adam Back, I think, is very good salient points. I think that he also is willing to invest and put his money behind these different uses for Bitcoin. So he may not be perfect on everything, but I do think he's willing to have an open mind and have a conversation. There's a really good, I'll have to look at the tweet thread, but
it was a really good report on how active people are on Twitter and what the sentiment is for the top Bitcoin influencers. And Adam Back came out as one of the top guys that gets more active the more FUD there is. So like he's someone that comes out and says, okay, hey, here's the quantum FUD. So his posting last September, October, November got the most active of any time in the year and is the most positive towards Bitcoin, because he wanted to put his research and point out there of why he didn't think quantum was the biggest risk, why he was siding with Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, saying, guys, quantum's not as close as you think it is. So that is why Adam Back, you want to have a good partner that's open-minded to do different business ideas, and he's obviously very well capital backed with his stack.
Great choice. Had to have the technical expert and also the face, and he fills both roles. So way to go. Adam Back. He was going to be scooped up early, and he was. All right. I'm going to go with my pick. Number one, I'm going Tim Draper. Oh, 40 years in the VC game. Of course, he's backed companies like Tesla, SpaceX, Skype, Coinbase, and Robinhood. He saw Bitcoin early. This man in 2014, he bought 30,000 Bitcoin that were auctioned by the U.S. Marshals when they were seized from Silk Road. So he's got that Ross Ulbricht Bitcoin, and he's got it for $632 per coin. And right after he bought it in 2014, it dipped bad down to like $150, but he held through. He did not sell his Bitcoin. He's been talking about it for over a decade now. True believer. He's an Omega bull. He's always calling for a $250,000 Bitcoin, and you need somebody like that up front to lead the charge, sort of like a Tom Lee type. But he is a great vocal figure in the Bitcoin community, knows everybody in the business landscape, and he and I, we both got very strong eyebrows. So we're eyebrow brothers, and we're gonna take it through to the end as hardcore Bitcoiners. That's my pick, number one. All right. And any comments on Tim Draper?
The strongest eyebrows. Yeah, he's still active. I think it's been really good through the ups and downs. I think Tim Draper's been very active and continued to deploy capital in Bitcoin itself.
All right, my pick number two. I am going to scoop somebody off the board that you probably didn't think of. Who's retiring at the end of 26? From her role as a U.S. Senator, that would be Senator Cynthia Lummis. She is going to be out of politics and a free agent. I am scooping her up. She has all the Washington connections. She knows regulation inside and out. She's actually writing the laws that we will be playing with as a Bitcoin company. So you need a Washington, D.C. insider these days if you're going to be a big-time Bitcoin company, and she is my pick as soon as she retires from the Senate. What do you think about that?
That's solid. I think on the theme of political, I think that's where you see a ton of sway. I think you find a lot of success, and that's why for my second pick, Eric. Trump, I think of his controversial pick. I'm not saying we support everything, every political endeavor of the current administration. I think when it comes to ABTC, that's something I get behind. You know, we interviewed them back in November. We like their focus. We like their partnership with HUD 8. We like that they're Bitcoin only. I wouldn't be doing this with World Liberty Financial, but I do believe in American Bitcoin as an American-based Bitcoin miner, you know, pushing American control of, you know, high-performance compute, as well as, you know, mining more Bitcoin in the U.S., I think is good. And the key thing is obviously paving the way to get things done at the highest level in the United States, to get deals done. Hard to beat those connections. So I think if you're looking for a successful business, we've learned this past year, you know, don't fight the Fed, and then also don't fight, you know, the political stream and some upstream.
Yeah, he's quite the vocal proponent of Bitcoin, heading up on all the news channels, willing to say that he got into it for the right reasons because he was debanked and he realized that they need a decentralized platform for their money, for their billions. He's convinced his dad to get in the game. Trump, Truth Social, has $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. Eric Trump has, I believe, over 5,000 Bitcoin in their Bitcoin treasury for American Bitcoin. They are mining Bitcoin every single day and getting it at cheap prices because they make it themselves. Good choice. Good choice. Good choice. All right, Allard, you're up. You get two in a row. You get two in a row.
Guys, I think like the politician picks are pretty good. I hadn't thought about that. It just wasn't even in my mind. Like, so that's good.
Curveballs, gotta have them.
I will, for my second one, go with Alexander Leishman, the CEO of River. I think it's just, like we can talk all day about different people over here. Like ultimately, River is a business with immense reputable integrity, right? And I think that's huge when doing business. I think Alex has shown that he's created successful businesses, so I totally want someone like that on my team if I were building the business, right? So also, if my earlier pick was Eric, like we would probably need someone technical on the team. I can somewhat code, but I'm a one-trick pony with Python. So I think Alex will be. Alex is good with tech, from what I can see. So that'd be my pick there.
Yeah, conviction too. I think he's been a voice that's been very clear from day one on exactly how he wants to run the business, on how he feels Bitcoin Core principles should be implemented in a Bitcoin business. He was, he wasn't necessarily, I think, a hater in the same sense of always attacking everyone that was a Bitcoin treasury company. I did see him at the Bitcoin for Corporations event at Strategy World in Orlando. So he was present, in the conversation. But he's also not, he's, said some critical things of, look, guys, I think this is missing the mark on where we should be pushing, Bitcoin adoption. And he had concerns around overinflated MNAVs and retail getting fleeced. So absolutely, I think like having that conviction on board is key. And he's done a really, really good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, to be fair, right, like every time I see one of his posts that is like it might read a little critical of treasury companies, I feel like if I read deeper on it, it kind of makes sense what he's talking about. Like in general, right? Like it would be better if the breadth of different companies that were buying Bitcoin, a lot of them were buying it with a lot of these were like cash flowing companies and companies that have products other than just their stock alone, right? And I think that's basically where the heart of his critique on that is. And I think like it's a very nuanced point because it's easy to misconstrue that as, hey, we're just being haters. But I really don't think he is being a hater. I really think like it's just, like that's what I think, and it makes sense if you look at the economics for companies to like have cash flows and then have a Bitcoin strategy too. So to his defense there, I'm not saying like you're attacking him or anything.
I respect it. I think he'd like stand behind what he believes, versus staying quiet and just wanting their business, right? Like easily could be a CEO of an exchange and say, I'm not going to weigh in on this because I don't want to lose potential corporate business at River. But I think he steps beyond that and says, this is what I believe in. This is what I believe is right, even if it isn't the best financial outcome immediately. So respect.
And certainly there's a lot to be said about, founders in a company who are more happy to show their face, at least within, within like the whole fintech, crypto and Bitcoin space, and even just tech in general. Whenever you have a face that's in the company and that's very active and engaging with people, it always helps with business. People don't really love talking to a disembodied entity, right? Like they like people. So it's like anyone who's able to engage and interact like that, like it's bullish for the company.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you're building out the ultimate bro list here because Alex Leishman and Eric Yakes are all about the deadlifts and the squat.
Yeah, they lift.
Like they're gonna, you guys are gonna be lifting some heavy weights in the office. You're gonna have a squat rack in your office. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, man. If your dev team is like shredded and buff, like normally that's bullshit.
You're cracked. You're automatically cracked.
Like cracked engineers. Yeah.
All right, Allard, this is a tough spot. This is the turn, so you got to double pick.
Yeah. This is someone I respect deeply. I think he's very big on my Bitcoin journey. And I know he's also been involved with very large scale company operations, right? So it'll be Matthew Kratter, who does a Bitcoin University. I think inside this space, like he is pretty much very high on the list in terms of integrity, right? Like never showed any kinds of scams or anything like that. Has very objective takes. I think recently the attacks on recently the discourse between core and knots, like he's focused a lot on that, and I would have liked him to have just focus Bitcoin University more on just general Bitcoin topics, but it's his channel, so he can do what he wants with it. But anytime he drops a video, I'm always there watching. So I just have a tremendous amount of respect for the man. I also know he was involved with, like I think a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund back in the day. So definitely an incredibly smart individual. Yeah, like I can tell that by his videos too. Like I don't really need the hedge fund experience on the resume, but yeah, like that's why I picked. Just tremendous amount of respect. I can see that he's a man of integrity. So yeah, those are qualities that I highly value.
Yeah, good choice. I think he traded for Peter Thiel, actually. He was working for him.
Yeah.
And Kratter, I mean, when it does come to the core versus not stuff, he went pretty hardcore in the paint. I mean, he was calling out people socially, relationships, diving into the personal aspect of it all. But he's a man of conviction, right? And he believed that he was fighting for what was right. And so you can still say that he maintained his integrity in that fight, even if he got in the mud a little bit. But yes, Bitcoin University is a great place to get information on Bitcoin up to date every single day, new videos, and great communicator and educator. So solid choice. Yes. All right, Jody, you.
Sleeper pick from the strategy bench. Corporate treasurer Shirish Jajodia at Strategy. Met him, I think, 3 years ago at Swan Bitcoin in Los Angeles or Santa Monica. And very friendly guy. I think that he's also wicked smart. He's also been someone that's been on the ship early, has shown conviction with Michael Saylor, has, evolved their processes internally. They have a very small team that's running this very expensive, and not expensive from a capital like running cost perspective, but they're controlling a lot of assets. It's a very, very influential, all the prefs. And I think seeing the evolution that we've seen, Michael gets on stage, talks about him, working with AI to develop the prefs. I think Shirish does a lot behind the scenes that talking to others has been very, very influential and impactful on how strategy has been successful. So I see that as just super, if let's pretend in this, you're starting a business and we're all the CEOs, all three of us, you want someone that's going to be amazing complement, going to be the Batman or Robin to your Batman. And I think Shirish would really be helpful. I do think if you partner with Michael Saylor, just because we're on the topic of strategy, he's going to yell at me. He's going to be very upset when I have stupid ideas. I think any of us, he's a very smart guy, and he does not suffer fools. He is very generous with his time. But if we're running a business together, I do think every board meeting, he's going to be running through my pipeline very quickly, uncovering flaws. So I do think Shirish might be a little bit easier if he's, co-founder, two-founder relationship. But I couldn't mention him without obviously mentioning the big dog Saylor.
Yeah. Okay. It's solid. Nice sleeper pick there. Okay. Shirish, man, with some deep inside knowledge here on the workings of strategy. Jody going with deep picks. I dig it. All right. My turn.
Yeah.
I will go with the man himself, the communicator, Jack Mallers. We got to have a front man out there, somebody who gets on stream, talks to the people themselves with mail-in questions every single Monday evening. And Becky, yes, I did just select that. Didn't even see that there, but that was my pick. Great minds think alike. Jack Mallers, great communicator. What he's done with Strike is extremely impressive, building it from just him to this massive Bitcoin app that does so many different financial aspects of your Bitcoin life. And now he's the head of of course, 21. There was some controversy this week as to why 21 removed the Bitcoin per share metric from their website. And he said himself that, their Bitcoin treasury companies aren't putting emphasis on that right now. So he's willing to take hard questions live in front of an audience. And he's a man of great oratory ability. Saw him on stage in Miami for when he made the announcement about El Salvador adopting Bitcoin with the Bitcoin law. He was in tears on stage, talking about how much of a momentous moment that was. And he was absolutely right. So yeah, Jack Mallers is my pick right there for the communication aspect of it all. And then I got to get some tech on my team, and I'm going to go with a woman again. I'm going to go Elizabeth Stark, CEO of Lightning Labs. We're going to be doing tech here. It's going to be Lightning based, whatever company we're doing. And she can work with Jack, figure out the tech, and make sure that we are on top of this all. She's a former Stanford and Yale instructor, extremely intelligent woman, and has done so much for the Lightning Network and growing it over the last 5+ years. So Elizabeth Stark is my tech choice, and that is my company, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at that. So Lightning Labs. And also, it's great having a female on the team.
Dude, I got 2.
Yeah, bullish on that.
Women in Bitcoin. Let's go.
All right. We're going to break it off a little separate now. So for my last one, and I will say I am picking people that I've met just because it's a little bit easier to say to report back if I know this person or not. As we think about Bitcoiners, let me get his right name so I can write it down.
Who is it? Who's he going to pick? What does he need? I guess Eric Trump is your talk man. You got your tech with Adam Back. You got your treasury, Shirish. Who is it?
Yeah.
Jody. Oh,
I know, leaving you guys hanging. All right. This is going to be controversial. But tech guy, I'm not going to go with. I'm going to go with the biggest worldwide influence coming from Bitcoin Asia in Hong Kong. The person that everyone stood up, not everyone, but most people stood up and were filming as he walked on stage. Blew my mind. All the guests there, everyone there, standing on, with their phones out camera. Controversial for maxis, but if you think about influence and if you want to make sure that you're going to survive as a company,
no, we don't see it. CZ.
Oh man, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, every single person at Bitcoin Asia in Hong Kong stood up and was filming it, and he's a legend over there. And I think if you're cracking into the Asian market, if you really want the most reach possible, if you want to make a good corporation to be admittedly cutthroat, CZ's a guy. I don't like the shit coins. I don't like the altcoins on Binance. This is not a feel good pick. It's a what's going to be successful pick.
Dude, he's a gangster. He does a lot of dad jokes and whatnot, but he plays the humble guy. This guy, he's ruthless. He's a ruthless businessman, and he's been to jail and back. And he said he was going to just retire into education, but no, he's right back in it all at Davos, at these summits and conferences around the world, talking about Bitcoin and crypto. Still a huge figure in the space and somebody you don't want to cross.
Yeah, he could pretty much run the company by himself, without my help, and we would do well.
And there's the Trump CZ ties, right? I mean, Trump pardoned CZ.
Yeah.
So,
are we the baddies? Are we the bad guys?
Baddies.
Is that news? Are we bad guys? I think we are, but it makes for better TV.
All right, Allard, who's your last pick? Who are you rounding out with?
I'm go with Ross.
Ross, yes, I thought of that too. Yes, no, awesome choice, Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah, I don't think I have to go deep into it, but I think I've seen people that are just whenever Ross launches his next company, I'm there to invest. I think he is absolutely huge. has great business acumen. And he's like very technical too. So I think between him and Alex, like they can definitely cook something up great. You will notice like my assortment is very cypherpunk, and it's like, yeah, bros, like you said. So yeah, like I think everyone should get along well. Yeah, so that's really all there is to it.
Great pick. Yeah, I thought of that. Yes, of course. The man who really started Bitcoin businesses, right? Silk Road was the first proven Bitcoin business in the world, international. And he had to pay a heavy price for showing the government that there is a internet money that is able to go around all of their sanctions and laws. And he definitely spent a lot of time in prison for proving that point. But now he is free, and we're better for it. I was able to hear him live in Vegas last year, and yes, whenever he does start a company, people are going to be lining up to get behind it. Great list there, Allard. You didn't even prepare, and you got some heavyweight killers, a copacetic group that really, I think, functions well together as a team if they were put together in real life. Well done. Well done. Cool. Jody, any final thoughts there?
I think we have a good one. Nobody judge me. I'm just trying to win out here, trying to get a bag. So we're going to extend the giveaway today. It's a Friday stack. It's all about stacking. We want people to get their hands on some Bitcoin, to use it, care about it, understand it, transact with it. So we're going to keep it running for another hour. The special code word for the giveaway is going to be Allard, our guest. Obviously, want to put respect on his name. And let's going to update the site now, and you're going to be able to win 21,000 sats.
So we will run you through that, how you win the sats, how you become part of the group real quick. But I wanted to first talk about our friends over at Arch Lending. Bitcoin, you got it. But do you really want to spend it? Because you don't really have to do that. If you're a Bitcoiner, you've been watching this show, you're part of this, the Daily Stack, you're one of the stackers, you did the hard part. You stacked the Bitcoin and you didn't panic sell, even when we crashed from 126 down to 80,000. You're here because you love Bitcoin, you don't want to get rid of it. But still, real life happens. I mean, there's taxes, there's new opportunities, you want to make a big purchase, put a down payment down on a house. And selling your Bitcoin for cash it feels wrong. Well, this is where Arch comes in. Arch lets you borrow against your Bitcoin instead of selling it. Think of it like a flexible line of credit with rates starting as low as 8.5% APR. Big announcement this week. They just lowered their APR rate by 1%, starting to 8.5%. Really amazing stuff. So you can borrow as you need, repay anytime, and you only pay interest on what you use, all without triggering a tax event. The best part, your Bitcoin stays yours. Arch has a strict no rehypothecation policy. Your collateral is never lent out. It's held in a qualified, insured, bankruptcy remote custody with full transparency. So if you want to check them out, go to archlending.com. That's ARCH lending.com. All right, Jody. Now, please show the people the site where they can go and win some Bitcoin.
All right, we're going to pull it up. So Arch, this time last year, as we're obviously doing 21 rates, everyone was, except for maybe we're looking at maybe one lender was under 10%. And that was when Jack Mallers got on stage and he was saying, we're trying to push below, double-digit percentage on Bitcoin-backed loans or, borrowing against your Bitcoin. So now to see Arch come in 8.49, I think others are going to be, feel very compelled to compete with that. It's based on like funding rates. And so, what they can get, the cost of capital, but it's cool to see for the user, the more people are out there and, someone like Arch is driving this, it's going to be better for consumers, better for Bitcoiners to borrow at a lower rate. I am going to pull up 21rates.com/stack. This is where you're jumping in, you enter the passcode. So if I was entering the passcode, I would enter in my boy Allard, who's been awesome on the Mount Rushmore today, and enter the giveaway. You don't have to do anything else. Don't give us your address. Don't give us any Bitcoin. What we want you to do is just log in and start using Lightning. It's like the easiest thing to do. And if you don't have a wallet, our friends at Rhino, they have a free wallet and account. You can see it signed up there. But get in, and we're going to pick one good winner today. There's also a daily spin wheel. So if you missed today, there's going to be a daily spin wheel also presented by Rhino, where you can start stacking sats, come back every day, give it a spin. Maybe you'll win the big one, 2.1 million, 210,000, also a nice little chunk of change. So we want to make Bitcoin fun, and we're going to be doing this every Friday.
Yeah. Stack sats with us, the daily stack. That's what we do. We offer the ability for you to win free Bitcoin every single day with the wheel right there. And then the big one, 21,000 sats today, Friday, on the Friday stack. Allard. So what did you think, Allard? Did you enjoy that Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I would do it again.
Cool, man. So if people want to follow you on X and get your research and analysis, where should they go?
Oh yeah, I mean, I write under Stony Chambers. The name is Bitcoin Asset Research. Yeah, Stony is without an E. So yeah, that's it.
Nice, man. And what are you doing next? What's your next research project? Have you planned it out?
Yeah, I mean, for BFC, there's a few different drafts. Something along the lines of like treasury adoption. Well, it's more like the European markets ability to be supportive towards these treasury strategies and these like capital raise dynamics. So either something like that or same thing, but like Asian markets. And then like sometime soon in 2026, I'd expect something just on digital credit, because I think, yeah, like a piece that just focuses on that. Certainly in this last piece, we've covered it, but just something that does a deeper dive would probably be useful.
Yeah, it seems as if the digital credit flywheel is starting to take effect. STRC being able to maintain the $100 peg and thus generate a lot of money for them to go out and buy Bitcoin with. So the story is just beginning, and you've got a lot of research ahead of you. All right, I think that is it for this edition of the Daily Stack. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We go live every single day, 5 days a week, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Find us here. We're trying to give out Bitcoin. We're trying to hand out the education and build a community of Bitcoiners, someplace where you can go each and every day and be part of the squad, the Stack Squad.
Who else wants that Costco sweatshirt? Avi's calling us out. I can't give you this one. My cousin or my wife's cousin gave me this. Probably a limited edition, or it could be $20. Either way, first person to comment Costco in the comments, we will give you a Daily Stack hoodie. Do those exist? No, but it will force us to go make swag, which we want to do anyways. So, first person comment, I will send you a Daily Stack hoodie. It will be maybe similar to this. We'll see.
We'll see. We're getting the merch. We're merching up. Yeah, we're building out. All right. Thank you, everybody. It's been awesome.